Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for the, I keep saying Make Progress channel, but Chris Williamson told us to change it to just our name, or my name. There's no me, it's an us. We're a production. There's actually one of my friends is sitting behind the camera. Can I shout you out or no?
Absolutely.
My friend Ben Feldman, who is both male and a Jew. And at the very least, I know that based on his name alone. He just beat the crap out of me in gi jiu-jitsu, so my face looked kind of messed up. Scott, the video guy's back there as usual, doing whatever he does. I have no idea. But today, we are going to discuss my political philosophy. And yes, I know it's video number 69. Scott, we having a good laugh at that one? Ha 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 ha. Yeah. But it's not going to be another video about adult films. We've already made a video like that. So, until recently, I didn't think I was going to make a video like this, mostly because my political philosophy is a few things. It's very situation and issue dependent, as you may have seen on my social media before when I really recently stopped posting political stuff in the last year or two. But back in the day when I used to post it, I get a lot of very, very odd takes. They look odd, but I promise they make sense in the grand scheme. I consider my political philosophy quite nuanced. It's not a lot of super simple answers to direct questions at all times, though sometimes there are. I borrow from many schools of thought, so it's very difficult for me to say, oh, I'm like a conservative or I'm a liberal. I'm definitely neither one of those two things, full stop, though I do share a lot of thoughts with both. And so as an example, I consider myself mostly libertarian, but I'm super pro-military and pro-police. And like that alienates me from a substantial number of actual libertarians. And so it becomes quite confusing what the hell is it that I have as a core political philosophy. And the good news is recently, and so, sorry, before I get into what it is, why the hell am I making this video at all? A lot of people ask, and a lot of people are curious, and a lot of people that will sort of mention me or talk in the comments, they're kind of assuming a lot of things. And I just wanted to sort of clear this up so people can get a good read on me. And so if folks wanted to, get together and, I'm always down to sort of debate kind of anyone, the sufficient, size platform that it makes sense for both of us, sort of thing. And so now that I can tell you guys what my political philosophy is, maybe you guys can even ask in the comments about like, well, I'd love to hear an explanation of X, Y, Z. I'm not an expert in economics or politics, but I can speak with like a little bit more clarity maybe than the average person about how some of these things are a little bit simpler than many people make out to be. And I really, really do think that. So basically that's why I'm making this video, just kind of put my cards on the table. And luckily, I've been doing some thinking about this. I've recently been able to encapsulate my core political philosophy in just 3 basic tenets. Just 3, which is really dope. And I think these are tenets that more people could look into and benefit from. Because if you start thinking about, are these good things to shoot for? Or are these not so great things? How much nuance is there? If you buy what I'm selling you today, if you don't, no big deal. I have tons of respect for everyone of every political stripe. No big deal at all. But if you think a little bit about this, you might be like, yeah, that actually is maybe some decent points here that you can extract. You can take them to advocacy. You can take them to the voting booth. To quote P. Diddy, shake that ass in the voting booth. I don't think he actually said that, but the South Park guys said he said that, and was by no means clear what P. Diddy's doing now. Am I right, big dog? Get it, pimp. If he ever gets out of jail, I don't give a fuck. See you in the street.
Shaking it in jail now.
I wonder, he probably has a good racket going in jail, doesn't he? What do we think about P. Diddy having a time of his life in jail? Good time, Ben? Good time, bad time?
Really good time.
Did he? Oh yeah, because he's the man.
Yeah, people love them. They worship them.
100%. You're going to get instant auto security because some of the smarter guys are going to be like, if I protect P. Diddy in here, I'm entitled to eat out there, right? Something's got to happen. In any case, this will not be a video about P. Diddy. Scott, should we in episode 70, the P. Diddy affair? Like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm reading off like news snippets. Like, I guess he had a lot of baby oil in it. I don't know what the fuck's going on. So maybe some benefits from hearing me BS about this. So my core political philosophy is the following. I am generally, so with specific policies get their own attention, generally in favor of policies that promote increases in some combination of freedom, wealth, and cleanliness. Cleanliness isn't the best term. I'll tell you in a little bit what that means. There's got to be a better term for it, but for now, I'm sticking to it. So over time, I'll probably re-articulate these concepts in a more succinct way that makes a little bit more sense. But for now, freedom, wealth, and cleanliness. Specifically, I'm generally more in favor of policies that promote increases in freedom, increases in wealth, and increases in cleanliness of the median citizen of a country over the long term. And to me, the long term is years and decades. There's a term in Keynesian economics called, because people say, what about the long term? And the term is something to the effect of, in the long term, we're all dead. And that's the stupidest shit I might have ever heard in my entire life. I'm kidding, but not by much. It turns out that the way you build societies that do an amazing amount of good is you think long term. Like if you want to build a body that looks cool, you don't think about like what is tasty now. You think about what do I want to look like tomorrow. And so people say there's kind of a lack of meaning in modern societies. I get it. It's totally a thing. But if you derive a deep meaning from making decisions now that will not only benefit you later, but your children later, your grandchildren later, and future generations even more, you can die for a purpose. You can die having lived a long life of productive efforts and supporting the right policies and leave a world behind that's better and even better on its way to still better stuff. That's fucking worth it versus just milking out whatever the fuck you can and then croaking. Fuck all that. It's a dope way to live if you don't hurt anybody, but there's something deeper here. There's something more. So when I say I'm pro-freedom and pro-wealth and pro-cleanliness, I mean that not just now, but especially building a society or a group or a corporation or whatever value system kind of constraint you have out into the future. So I'm going to break this down into freedom and then wealth and then cleanliness and tell you all about kind of the basics of what these mean and sort of what kind of policies I tend to support and really why, right? I did not arrive at these just because I feel them on vibes. I initially arrived at freedom being awesome on vibes back when I was a young Ayn Randian. I got 2 tattoos from that era. They're dope. But vibes aren't good enough. We have good logical reasons to believe that these things are objectively good. And yes, I do mean that. So what do I mean by freedom? I mean specifically a type of freedom that philosophers called negative freedom, because there's negative freedom and positive freedom. Negative freedom is generally defined or understood very generally. Again, if you guys want to get into pedantic nuances, I'm there for it, but not in the constraints of this video. Negative freedom is understood generally to be the freedom not to be coerced so long as you're not interfering in the lives of others, which means I'm 1000% down contextually in a nuanced way, but generally very much down for every single religious freedom, as long as it doesn't hurt other people who aren't willing participants. All social freedoms, pretty much. Sexual orientation, I love you. Come give me a hug. Drug use, my man, where are you scoring at? Freedom of speech, love it. I would say a lot more if we had real solid fucking freedom. We do have real good freedom of speech in the US, but YouTube's a private company and I'm not going to step on their toes. So there's a lot of things they don't say. Free speech is super, super dope and super critical. You name it. I'm from all of those freedoms on the social side. And in addition to that, I'm for all the freedoms on the economic side, which is basically like you get to spend most of your money how you see fit at the individual level, at the family level, at the business level, at every level, getting government and other people who would use force to threaten you to stop coercing you and let you spend your life, social freedom, and your money, economic freedom, however you see fit and in a way that doesn't hurt other people in a very direct way. So that is what I mean by freedom, and I'm for that to a very, very great extent. Now, I have to address for philosophical completeness the term of positive freedom, that term really means like the real world ability to do what you wish at any point. So if you ask someone, you get to seeing a homeless person on the street, and then you bring the homeless person over and you bring like a Wall Street guy in a business suit, and you're like, okay, the Wall Street guy, does he have the business? Does he have the freedom to make a successful business? You're like, yeah, of course. Like America, like that. What about the homeless guy? And some people are like, yeah, he absolutely has the freedom to do it, but he's just not in a position to do it. And some folks who are more into the positive freedom will say he doesn't have the freedom to do it. Like he doesn't really, because he can't just go do it. He doesn't have the freedom to do it because he's constrained by his appearance. He's constrained by his skill set, maybe his talent set. Maybe he's got mental illness. Maybe he's got drug addiction. Even if he's super talented, he's constrained by other people's assumptions of, well, you're homeless. You can't dig your way out from the bottom. We're not going to hire you. So in reality, he is, if not totally unfree to have a good business, they'll say he's substantially less free. But in a negative freedom analysis, as long as someone's physically not preventing them or regulatorily not preventing them from starting a business, both people are equally as free to start a business. So where is the problem? The problem is this: positive freedom doesn't mean freedom at all. It's just a bad term. It shouldn't have anything to do with freedom. Positive freedom is a misnomer. The much more accurate term for that is going to be capability. Like, I have the freedom to become the world's strongest man, but God decided to make me 1.5 feet shorter than the average world's strongest man, and with genetics that suck by a factor of 10. So, and also I'm 40, which is way past the median age of the best strongmen on the planet. It's like, unless I have like a time machine, genetic engineering, altering device, can you really say I don't actually have the freedom to become the world's strongest man? No, I just don't have the capability to do so. But there is nobody, if I try to go to world's strongest man and go to regional tournaments and compete all my way up, there is nobody stopping me from it. I do have the freedom. Like a teenager who you're raising, they're like, okay, what do you got for me this evening? And you're like, well, you're free, totally free. From 8 p.m. till 11, you're free to do whatever you want. And they're like, okay, can I borrow the car? And you're like, no. And they're like, well, it's not real freedom. Like, yeah, it sure is. Nobody said freedom was having a car, motherfucker. That's a capability. You want a car, you're going to have to, like, I don't know, get a driver's license and shit. Two very different concepts. And I think they're very, very separate. So I'm absolutely pro-freedom. I'm also pro-capability, but we'll get to that one later because there's a better way to talk about that. Capability is going to be addressed mostly by wealth creation. And so freedom, wealth, and cleanliness, we'll take that in part 2. Now, so why am I in support of freedom increases other than vibes and freedom feeling cool? Because that's dope, right? The fucking Scott, how do we see freedom happening? Freedom is something that's secreted from the talons of the American bald eagle. Yes.
Oh, hell yeah.
And sometimes, yes. And also, if he does the caw also lets people truly understand what freedom is in their hearts and souls.
Does an eagle sound like?
Ah! And it's literally, instead of blood, it's freedom dripping off his talons. No, that's it's really freedom blood. Yeah. That's right. God damn it. Woo! Any case, that kind of freedom vibe is super fucking dope. I'm not trying to shit on that. It's all good. But here's the reason I'm for freedom. First of all, it's important when you have a society of intelligent beings, which is our society and any other society of animals of any kind, that like generally good principles, like everyone's having a pretty fucking good time. They're kind of there consensually and everyone's sort of not being impinged upon. It works better from a game theoretic perspective if everyone's pretty aligned. If there's like one person that benefits and everyone else sucks, like that's a very unstable system because it's just begging for a revolution. Revolutions generally go very poorly. They usually destroy wealth. They usually set societies back. So you're going to want a lot of consensus on stuff. And almost everyone likes freedom, especially as long as it's their freedom that's on the chopping block. Everyone's like, oh, we shouldn't let this group do that. But then you're like, what about you guys and your shit? Well, my special book from God says I get to do this. Dope. Why don't we let them do their shit from their special book from God, right? Everyone can have negative freedom by definition, because if you're doing something like I'm at home, I'm jerking it to you know what? Adult films, consensually made adult films. Fuck it. AI porn. I don't give a fuck. No one is even being hurt, right? In any way. Am I hurting anyone? You can say I'm hurting myself. Fine. But you're allowed to hurt yourself because you own yourself. In negative freedom, you are fully in charge of your own autonomous person. But you ain't touching nobody else. That's totally cool. Does that mean you have to approve of pornography? Fuck no. It's vile and degenerate. Sure. Fuck it. I'm a fucking creep. Look at balding, weird old Jewish man jacking off. It's disgusting. You don't have to approve of it all. But if you're pro-freedom, you're going to have to tolerate the shit. So like, look, real talk. Does everyone like all the fucking new weird gender people? I love them. I think they're fucking great. But do they weird you out? Fuck them. Whatever. That's okay. They're doing their own shit. You got to leave them the hell alone. That's freedom, because everyone likes their freedom when it's their freedom. And almost everyone likes more freedom than less. If you do direct polling, you'd be like, do you specifically, do you want more freedom, or do you want someone to tell you what to do and especially tell you what not to do? No, I'm good with more freedom. So that's a good thing. And that's awesome as far as getting consensus and having stable societies, but it goes more than that. Free societies on historical and econometric grounds get along better internally, citizen to citizen, and externally, as far as how the society deals with other nations by a long shot. Free societies just attack each other less. And the people inside free societies just kind of throw up a peace sign to each other. Ain't nothing going on. Like, it's all Gucci. If you have really repressed societies, they typically like have a lot of internal strife. They're not very safe places to be for one another. And in addition to that, they typically start a whole bunch of shit. Here's a perfect example. North Korea, safe place to walk around, and fuck no, they can just throw you in jail for whatever. And also, they're just always just trying to start shit. They're trying to start beef with South Korea all the time, beef with America. Like, when's the last time South Korea started shit? The answer is never. They just don't do that. And the average South Korean, you come up and like, what do you think about this other person on the street? They're like, I have never met them. Like, well, just generally, should we like kind of tell them, move? Like, no, what? That doesn't make any sense. So freedom is just something, it's a special sauce that makes everyone have a much better time. And that's really, really good. And so even well-intentioned, but short-sighted regulations like, oh, some freedom is bad. Maybe. And there's absolutely an argument for that. But even such regulations can give a lot of power to governments to begin to curtail more freedom. And eventually governments tend to grow and start curtailing the freedoms that you didn't really care about at first and you were fine to throw away, but now they're curtailing your freedoms, and that's really, really bad. And even if it's good on vibes, because, order or whatever, fucking fascist shit, sweet, it usually results in quality of life reductions or reductions in the pace of improvement of quality of life. If you have a high degree of social freedom, you have a high degree of economic freedom, the ability to innovate and to generate massive amounts of wealth and to promote a society that just gets baller in every way is just like unlocked. And the more you regulate, the more you reduce freedom. Generally speaking, the worse your society ascends, the slower it ascends. And sometimes it can even regress. So freedom, even just on, okay, fuck cooperation, fuck vibes, we don't really like people, people are just machines to us, we're Machiavellian. If you were Vladimir Putin and you weren't, and I'm sorry, forgive me, hopefully you don't get kiboshed for this. Scott, are we allowed to use the R word on YouTube, or is that real bad?
Yeah, that's bad.
Putin is the R word. How do I know he's the R word? It's something we used for the mentally deficient back in the 90s. Because people say he's a master strategist. But your boy out there regulating the crap out of his economy, capturing industries with the state and just milking them dry. If he was real smart, he would do what the founding individual of Singapore did, which is liberate the dog shit out of his economy, liberate the dog shit out of his society, take a Vladimir Putin 2% tax just for himself and be the world's first trillionaire and the first 10 trillionaire. But he ain't that smart. He doesn't know economics. He doesn't know social theory. He's just some weirdo from the KGB. And so he's sinking that whole ship. So even for a purely Machiavellian, insanely self-interested dictator, you want maximum social and maximum economic freedom. You give people that, they're going to think the country's so great, they ain't never going to rebel. No one has really unlocked that yet. And as we get smarter as a society, you're going to see, and over time, this has been completely true, over time, the grand historical trend is societies with some ebbs and flows rise in social and economic freedom. We can get there earlier and we'll just have a better time. Now, you have to ask, is there a cap on freedom? Is there such a thing as too much freedom? Yes, technically you can have a cap. Maximum negative freedom, it binds up to what you can do to others. So like, what is it? Your freedom to throw your hands around ends at the tip of my nose, right? As long as you're not hurting anyone else, you're good. So negative freedom actually auto caps itself to make sure that it's actually very straightforward. Now, let me address something that you may bring up in the comments, and it would be very good for you to bring up. There are situations in which the trade-off isn't clear. There are situations in which, okay, how much power do we give parents over teenagers versus how much autonomy do we give teenagers? There is absolutely nuance in that discussion. There's absolutely a time where no, just because you're 5, you can't just get a surgery to cut off various genitals. Sorry, that's just not how we're running things. Typically, we recognize full agency at age 21 in the United States, and most countries is age 18, and everything in between. But there are nuanced discussions to have. However, if we have freedom as a North Star, the nuanced discussions are much better because we can say, okay, trade-offs, etc., but freedom's still a big deal. Sometimes we have to trade it off for other things. But if we have it as a North Star, it makes the trade-offs more understandable. It's weird when you talk about trading off freedom and a bunch of the people in the discussion don't even like freedom all that much. You're like, okay, you guys have misconstrued this considerably. So generally, I'm for freedom being very high. Now, once freedom is a very high, we should expect only marginal improvements rather than exponential ones. Like if you look at a country like Canada, for example, and you look at their social freedoms, like they're real high, man. The United States economic freedom, real high. Can we do better? Yes, of course. But if we do substantially better, we'll get really good returns. But like if like Turkmenistan, an entirely oppressed nation, unlock their economic freedom and social freedom, they would have like a full bloom of society and 10xing their shit within years. We're not going to get that because we're damn close to freedom already. But the more, the better. We can't expect one tiny little increment of unlocking freedom to give us these huge results. But more is better. And also, freedom costs less money because the government has to regulate to reduce freedom. So now not only do you have more wealth production by freedom enhancing, but your government doesn't have to do that anymore. Like, imagine the cops had to watch how people dressed. And so they had two jobs: stop actual crime and then watch for people dressing too, whatever we chose, too many red shirts or too many blue shirts or jeans too low or too high. They also had to do that. You're making the police either more expensive or worse at their job. You tell them, hey, cops, we just straight up don't care about how people dress as long as they're covering their titties up, their genitals are not fully in view. We're good. We just don't care. They're going, oh my God, we just saved a bunch of money. I mean, take those same resources, give it back to the taxpayers, or we can take the same resources and crush out real actual crime like murder, the R word, all that other R word, all that other stuff that's actually a violation of negative freedom. Last thing I'll say about freedom is almost all crime can be defined as violations of negative freedom. If you come for me and my stuff that is actively interfering with what I want to do, that's a no-no. It takes care of all financial crime, all procedural crime, and definitely all violent and property crime. No problem. Are there nuances on crime and how to adjudicate? Yes, absolutely. I'm always there for the nuances. But I think it's important to get the big rocks settled first. The nuances, we can debate them till we're blue in the face, but the nuances don't break apart the big rocks. All right, next up, wealth. What do I mean by wealth? The increase in our reserve of knowledge and resources with which we can solve problems. That's my preferred definition of wealth. I'm here for the nuance and for other definitions. Wealth is almost a direct result of the birth and evolution of technology. You can ask the question of what would wealth look like with zero tech, and it's like the tribal chieftain who has the most chickens in his hand at the same time. That's it. And as soon as he eats the chickens, we're back down to zero wealth in the society. Very transient bubble of wealth. Real wealth is based on how much access to technology you have, the advanced degree of that technology, and the price performance of that technology. So if you have the Olduvon tool industry, basically something that looks like a computer mouse, but it's just made of rocks, and you can cut animal meat off the bone with it a little faster, you got a little bit of wealth. That was kind of the first type of wealth we've ever had. And the stone tools last for generations. So your dad passes on the stone, teaches you how to do it, he passes on. That's how technology and wealth were essentially created at first. Eventually, wealth is industrial machinery and cattle stuff. Now wealth is like microprocessors and NVIDIA chips and the money that symbolizes all that actual goods and services that happens. Wealth is best measured in monetary terms, and it's best measured via the time cost of various goods, and in my opinion, various goods and services to the median worker's income. So what does that mean? Time cost is if I'm the median worker, which means the fairest way to represent the average. It doesn't let trillionaires pull up the average a ton. So the fairest way to represent the average, in my view, or one of the fair ways, let's say in the United States, the median worker makes, depending on how you count it, $50,000 a year. And let's say he makes a certain amount on average per hour. With the average hourly rate that worker gets paid, what is the combination of goods and services multiplied by their quantity and quality of goods and services that they can afford? That is the most simple, probably one of the most direct measures of wealth. If Elon Musk, after working for an hour, can afford the goods and services of the average American's consumption in a year or two, we consider him preposterously wealthy. And if I can work for just an hour and get a burger to eat, oh my God, I only need to work an hour to get my next meal. If I work for 2 or 3 hours between meals, I can get enough wealth to do other stuff with. And if you look back at hey, how was life in the 1800s? It sucked because the median person had so little goods and services that they could afford, and they would need to work so long to get them. A lot of people were basically just struggling to get by. So that's how I like to measure wealth. And there's, of course, reserve in wealth, but the reserve doesn't mean anything if you can't take it out of reserve and apply the same. How much does this get me of goods and services? And also, how much time did I spend generating that wealth? That's a big deal. So as long as the median worker's time cost to reference goods and services goes up, which means what? For working an hour, you can afford more and more stuff or services or same amount, but of a higher quality. If that arrow is trending in the upward direction, we're on the right track. That's what I'm there for. So when I say I'm pro-wealth, I mean I'm for every single person, especially the median as measured on average, to be able to, for whatever amount of time they put into productive endeavors, to be able to get more out of that, which gives us almost every amazing thing that we can ever think of. And the generation of wealth and the treatment of wealth in my philosophical paradigm has no big relation to the income distribution of who has what and how much do the rich people have, how much do the poor people have. But my personal preference, at least, is for as many people as possible to increase their wealth long term as possible. So we're here right now in the world where the average person has XYZ wealth, and I want to be in a future world where as many people as possible get as much of an increase in wealth as possible. That to me seems like a really, really, really good time and really good for everyone. I'm philosophically very open to the idea that the rich people in society should be forced to give the poorer people their wealth. I think it's a fine idea on its own merits. There's something grotesque and disgusting about rich people having so much, and literally people just down the street in some countries getting enough food to eat for the day. Children, it's obscene. The whole thing's fucking obscene, right? For sure. But the problem with redistributive policies is they shoot the golden goose right in the head. Your favorite golden goose, as a matter of fact, you walk in and he's got a gun, he's shaky, he's putting it up to his head. You're like, golden goose, don't. He's like, I've had enough. No more eggs. And you're like, you try to put him back together. There's brains everywhere. CPR for the golden goose, golden CPR machine. I don't even know where I'm going with this shit. But here's the problem. Almost every time that you try measures of active redistribution, taking from the rich and giving to the poor, it has the downside of reducing the speed at which wealth accumulates. And the speed at which wealth for the whole society accumulates is critical, because in a year, in 5, in 10, in a generation, we build so much wealth that everyone gets richer. That's a huge deal. So is there a place in my political philosophy for some income redistribution? Yes. Definitely tax the rich, for sure. But you got to tax the rich in a way that is very, very aware of the fact that the more you tax the rich, the less money we all have later. And so if you think about it, you're like, man, let's really look into a system of taxing the rich, which is high enough to make sure that like people aren't starving to death in our society and have the fucking decent basics, but at the same time is as low as possible to foster the most wealth creation. Because here's how wealth creation happens. If you redistribute, everyone's roughly equal. And like in the Soviet Union, outside of the political class, which was loaded as fuck, everyone was roughly equal. Except we had like roughly the same level of wealth for 5 generations fucking straight. Nobody got any better. You couldn't even save money. You couldn't accumulate resources, the same products, goods, and services. We have a black and white TV in our home, and we were well-to-do in 1991. What the fuck? Peanut butter was not sold. Our toothpaste was powdered toothpaste, people. In 1991, upper middle class in Moscow, Russia, the richest part of Russia. So, 1917 revolution did a lot to redistribute the wealth, but they killed the golden goose. Who gives a shit how rich the rich people are if everyone is getting rich over time? Because allowing rich people to keep their money makes this insane incentive structure for like, if I really try hard and I really accumulate a ton of wealth and really produce valuable goods and services, I'm going to get paid and this could be my money. Don't you ever discount how important that is. I am not particularly motivated by money. A lot of people aren't, but a lot of people are. And it's a really, really big deal. So no problem with redistribution. So like the Nordic countries, they do a lot of redistribution, but they have a lot of really awesome pro-growth policies to generate their wealth. There's a conversation like, are they doing it too much? Is that's not enough? To me, the trade-off between wealth redistribution and allowing people to keep their accumulated wealth and keep going is a question only on the technical economics of which one vectors our society in the right direction while checking the boxes of like what's decent for poor people to live in. That's the only thing I'm interested in. So am I saying everyone keeps all their money? No, I think it's reasonable for people in society to agree. Look, some of the extra super mega rich people, they should give some of their money to poor people to make sure they're not on the street. But after that, we got to keep these rich people getting as rich as possible because that's how the system works. If it's just economics, it's not really up for debate unless you're just not into traditional economics and you're so psychotically to the left or right, you only see in red and blue. In any case, I digress. So Why am I so in support of wealth increases? Because I'm a millionaire. See, and I want my money, goddammit. Hey, Scott, did you get me that new diamond-studded cane I asked for?
It's on special order.
Ever since I made a lot of money, I always walk with a limp. Because like, man, why shouldn't I? See, I'm never rushing anymore. So why am I in support of wealth increases? Wealth is, again, let me scroll up and re-remember, wealth is how much knowledge and resources we have in reserve with which we can solve problems. Interesting. So why am I in support of wealth increases? Wealth is what powers our ability to survive and thrive in the world, all of us. All tools are wealth, all of them. All food is wealth. All medicine, all shelter is created by wealth and is wealth in and of its own right. And as wealth goes up, the quality of all of it goes up. Do you want better housing? Do you want better food system? Do you want better healthcare for everyone, for the poor? Do you want better technology? Come on, stop playing, right? Do you want scientific discovery? Who do you think pays for science? Do you want progress? Do you want a cleaner environment? Nothing powers that like wealth increases, not even close. You can have the most fair, just, honest system in the world, but they're dealing with medieval Europe levels of wealth. Like, all right, cure cancer and clean up the society. Fucking the animals are starving, give them food. They're like, what? We're just barely kind of get by. Oh, it's nice, a little elven system. And you could even say it's very socialistic, it's very communitarian, everyone's accepted for who they are. They got all the other ball of shit going, but without a lot of wealth, man, you know, your sword in battle comes out of your sheath and it's broken off and you're like, the fuck? This is not going to work. Wealth is it. It is your grand sword against all of the problems of the world. And it's your tool set to make everything around you way better in any way that you like. You want to do bad things? Wealth. You want to do good things? Wealth. You want to do anything? Wealth. That's just straight up how it works. Every single problem of income inequality is not a problem of income inequality outside of raw jealousy that someone has more than you do, which isn't really a problem. That's just you having a lot of feelings in your head. Every problem of income inequality is really just a problem of not enough wealth. Imagine a situation in which Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Sam Altman are sitting around. It's the world in 2032. And hyper-intelligent aliens came and gave us quadrillionaire technology. But they only gave us a little bit, and they're mostly just using when they took Greenland all to themselves. They paid us for it, an absurd amount of money. We're free to visit them. They don't pollute. They don't do anything. They just mine data or something in Greenland. Fuck would I know what they do. But we know for a fact that those aliens, those new people living with us in our society, they're all quadrillionaires, way beyond trillionaires, preposterous money. Is them being in Greenland somehow now Sam Altman and Elon Musk and all these other billionaires are like, these alien motherfuckers, they made my life worse when they got here. No, they didn't. They made it better. Or in this example, they didn't do anything at all. And remember, having rich people around is really, really good. They're really typically very nice. They're very civil. They don't get into fistfights in the street. And usually they want to pay you so you can do shit for them. And the rich people are at best or at worst neutral. And at best, usually fucking baller to have around. So this whole rich versus poor thing is total dog shit. Fuck the rich. They're good, man. The poor, how are they doing? Income inequality is not the problem. They just need more income. And there are two ways to get income going. One is you take the rich people's income, give it to them. Works well once, fucks the whole society up. The other is you allow the society to create as much wealth as possible, and you support the poor people and help them out to accrete as much wealth as possible. And all of a sudden, everybody getting rich and it's problem solved. So more wealth creation makes the poorest people richer, which is exactly what most of us want. And again, it's not wealth creation versus redistribution. It's number one, wealth creation. It's the golden goose. Keep it going. Number two, okay, is there a way we can redistribute this that's kind of vibe check ethical and kind of nice and not letting poor people die of hunger in the street, but also in a way that does not kill the golden goose? And listen, no offense, communist, socialists, y'all motherfuckers have killed every goddamn golden goose around the world. Korea, Vietnam, fucking East-West Germany, the Soviet Union, China. Holy shit. It's just bad news. So redistribution is toxic at its extremes. So we have to moderate it. Wealth is number one. And lastly, why I'm pro-wealth is from kind of a democratic perspective. Who's going to be against getting everyone richer? Like, I can't run for president because I was born in Russia, but if I was running for president, I'd be like, I'm trying to get every one of you motherfuckers rich. Like, sir, this is NBC. You can't say motherfuckers. Like, it's not even a swear word. It's just slang. Who's going to be like, well, I don't want any money. This guy's an idiot. What? What are you talking about? You guys know what one of my least favorite expressions is? More money, more problems. Whoever said that can feel free to deproblematize their life. I'm going to fucking put my address in the description. Send me a check, motherfucker. I'll take the problems off your hands. Get up out of here. Just like with freedom, everyone loves it when their freedom goes up. Everyone loves it when their wealth goes up. And arguments to lower freedom or to lower wealth are just really uphill. Like people, run for president. They're like, listen, we're going to make everyone poor, but motherfucker, you better say something real quick. You better say something real quick to get yourself out of this. Everyone's pro-freedom. At the end of the day, almost everyone, and almost everyone's pro-wealth. So not only are these objectively good things to make society objectively good now and amazing in the future, but it's like everyone agrees that they're good. So let's stop playing around and not be advocating for maximum freedom and maximum wealth with nuance, with context, of course, not maximum, but probably more. Any situation I come into with political mind, I go, is there a way we can increase freedom at little or no cost and increase wealth is generally going to be a good time. Right? It's kind of like if you think about stupid meathead analogy in bodybuilding, like more muscle and less fat is generally a pretty good answer for most physique competitors. The ones that are really good is more muscle here and not there. And, less fat is generally always a better thing. It's kind of one of those things. It's difficult to see how there's huge downsides there. To address another part of the wealth situation before we move on to cleanliness, how much wealth is enough? Wealth has been increasing exponentially for its entire recorded history, starting with the first stone tool industries and pre-human ancestors. And almost everything awesome has come from this exponential wealth increase. And you might think, love is awesome. It wasn't created by wealth. Dope. Pick someone in your life that you love. I'll pick my wife. And now I see my wife with a fungus that's eating her and she's starving to death because we don't have any wealth to get medicine and we don't have any wealth to get food. I love my wife. The world's killing her. The universe is brutal. You can't even live in space. It turns out that it's fucking got a vacuum and all that shit. And it turns out that if you just go out in the nature, you die very shortly in most cases. So whoever you love, whatever values you have, love or freedom or religion, they're all sitting in a bubbly warm soup supported by wealth. And so wealth is a really big deal. And so when I say almost everything awesome has come from this exponential wealth increase, I mean it. It was either created by it or is highly facilitated by it. So how much wealth do we not want to use to power scientific advancement, to support poor folks that need help? If you have a bleeding heart, I love you. I think that's fucking awesome. And you want to help the poor and the not so fortunate. You want to help them here at home. You want to help them in other countries. I fucking think that's great. I think it's awesome. Where do you get all that help from? We got to build it first, baby. We need wealth. Only with wealth can you give it away. It's always comical. You guys ever meet anyone who's like super pro-leftist, give away the money, but they come from like a background of like their dad made millions in tech and they grew up in a giant home or whatever. You're just like, they're like, distribution's good, like socialism's good. And you're like, I get it, but I think you're assuming a level of wealth that most people just don't have. Like, where is it coming from? So if you want to support the poor, you got to be number one pro-wealth advocate, rabid fucking capitalist, because that's where wealth comes from. When you get a ton of wealth, then you can give it to poor people and it's hunky-dory. Do you want to be poor in America or do you want to be poor in Zimbabwe? Don't play. Don't play. There's only one question. There's only one answer to that question. Do we not need more wealth to deploying more and developing more medical tech? It's all fun and games with saying, oh, enough wealth is enough. Europe has for a little while in some places had a degrowth or a no growth policy. No more wealth accumulation. It's like the French. I'm picking on the French. You guys are great. What is the point of more wealth anyway? How much can you buy? This is stupid. Nobody needs Gucci. Just look around you. The people you love, that is real wealth. I mean, no, hold on. Nicotine is really wealth. And that shit is all fun and games, saying no more wealth when you live in like, fucking coastal France or some shit, until a loved one is terminally ill. And I know you guys are going to say, well, death is just a part of life. Now, they're not 85, they're 7. How much wealth you want? How much wealth are you trying to get? You're trying to get so much wealth now, right now. That's the only thing you think of. If you really think it through, I want quadrillions of dollars injected into the lines of research that address my baby's disease. This one she's dying from right now. I want to superpower this industry and want to get to AI and super above everything so they can alter her genetics to save my daughter now. There's actually a possibility with wealth if you give it enough time. So this idea that you don't need more wealth, it meets head on all of our real actual problems. If you're really low on real problems, you can engender ideas like, oh, this is enough wealth. But if you see the world that has problems and has ways to improve them, guess what the toothpaste is you squirt into that shit? It's wealth every single time. So short of the physical limitations that an advanced machine society, when reconstructing the local universe completely, would run into, like real, like, holy shit, matter and energy flux in any one local area, be it in black holes or some shit like that. There's no argument for a wealth cap. We need to become as wealthy as humanly possible as a society so that we can laugh about how our poor people only drive Mercedes. That's the world I want to live in. No joke. So in other words, the more wealth, the better, so long as it doesn't seriously impinge on either freedom or cleanliness. Now, okay, what the hell is with this Orwellian cleanliness crap anyway? Let me give you my third political philosophy point of my, I don't know, is it like a triangle? What's cool, fellas? A political triangle? Yeah, why not? Yeah. Well, a triangle choky, a Brazilian wealth philosophy. In any case, for those of you who do jiu-jitsu, maybe that was funny. For the rest of you, hello, my name's Mike. All right, so what do I mean by cleanliness? So we got freedom, check. We got wealth, check. They're great. Maybe I've communicated that well enough, maybe not. What do I mean by cleanliness? I mean clean streets with minimal litter. I mean zero to no homelessness, ideally zero. I mean clean water and air and living spaces, and as clean and unadulterated a natural environment in the whole earth as possible outside of living spaces. You keep your living space orderly and clean, and outside of that, your backyard, whatever, even the possums are having a good time. There's no chemical spills in the rivers and all this other shit. This is like tier 1 of both what conservatives want in communities and what environmentalists want around. I'm for both. So why am I in support of cleanliness? First, almost everyone wants to live in a clean space. Nobody chooses Mumbai over Kyoto on city appearance and smell. And you might be there for different reasons, but like how the shit looks and how the shit smells and how the shit kills you over time with its toxicity, nobody trying to move to Mumbai. Mumbai people, I love you. I've been there twice. You guys are great. But Mumbai people could tell you, like, you're a man on the street, be like, would you like your city to become more like Kyoto, Japan, in a way that is related to cleanliness? They'd be like, oh, yeah. What? Because it's not even a question. It's absurd. It's like someone's getting stabbed to death and you're like, would you like more safety in your life? They're like, nah, I'm good. I had it coming. It's not really a huge debate. So everyone wants more cleanliness in almost all cases. And secondly, why I'm for it is my definition of cleanliness is on a society scale. And since we have a global Earth society at this point, that includes the natural environment. So if you're against cleanliness, you're like pro-polluted rivers. Who's for polluted rivers versus clean ones? Who's for polluted air versus clean air? Is there a fucking tycoon industrialist that walks outside of his chemical burning plant? I'm very specific. I chose my words wisely there. It's a plant whose job it is to burn chemicals. We didn't even know how we make money. We just burn them and it just goes into the air. And he's like, yeah, see? At least I've been able to kill some children with this nasty burning smog we release. Like, that's not a real person. Even if a person is insanely Machiavellian, insanely selfish, and lives somewhere else where his factory doesn't throw soot into the air, where they live, they don't want soot in the air. And you're like, hey, Mr. Capitalist Man, if for no additional cost, your factory could stop blowing soot into the air and even the city could be clean, would you do it? There are two types of people. People that say, yeah, hell yeah, and sociopaths that we need to be putting in jail. JK, but seriously. So is anyone not for beautiful forests that are super well taken care of? It's not really contentious. I'll submit to that. Everyone's for cleanliness for real, just like freedom and just like wealth. You could say, like, Mike, this is a dumbass talk. These aren't even contentious positions. Have you seen politics lately? A lot of people come out against a whole lot of freedom, against a whole lot of wealth. Like, Elizabeth Warren exists as a person. She like hates wealthy people and CEOs. But economics, Liz, you can read the book. It's a book for children. You can read it. It's nice. No offense, Elizabeth Warren, though I don't know, man. In any case, real talk, not everyone's for these things, even if they say they are. Is there a cap on cleanliness? Definitely yes. There is an exponential cost increase in linear improvements of cleanliness. This is a great reference to something that was described super well by economist and philosopher Thomas Sowell, was that if you want to pay a certain amount of money to get your dirty room clean 90%, it might cost you $10. Okay, fine. To get your room 99% clean, it might cost you $100. To get your room 99.9% clean, it might cost you $1,000 or even more. And so at some point you have to be like, okay, exponentially psychotic levels of perfectionist cleanliness might just cost too much money. And that means they hurt our wealth a little bit too much. Also, if cleanliness can interfere with freedom, like you're walking down the street and the police draw on you and they're about to fire. You're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, look at your shoes. You're like, am I allowed to look? Like, yeah. You look at your shoes, there's a little speck of dirt. You're like, you see that sidewalk, you stupid asshole? You're like, yes. You put dirt on our sidewalk. And I go, okay. Does World Star, does anyone film this? That would be insane. So we have to understand, like, cleanliness is going to cost money, and so it drains some wealth. It absolutely potentiates more wealth creation later by it being a cleaner place to create wealth, but there is a balance there. So there is a little bit of balance, but I'll say practically in the real world, outside of assessing costs and trade-offs, until things are like very clean almost all over, go to Montreal, go to Tokyo. Those are good examples. Until everywhere in the world, cityscape-wise, is about as clean as Montreal and Tokyo, we can usually make use of more cleanliness, right? And kind of at minimum, whatever municipality in the world has the highest cleanliness as a goal, we can understand, like, look, we want to make Detroit, Michigan cleaner. We don't have a ton of money in Detroit, and it's kind of fucking really dirty, and there's a lot of burnt down buildings, but at least we're setting that as our zenith. Like, that's where we're going. And we're going to have policies that start cleaning up the city and policies that prevent more gunk from building up. It might take us realistically 15 years to get to looking like Tokyo, but at least we're trying, recognizing the problem and working towards it. I'm not saying everything needs to be clean tomorrow. That's insane, but somewhere like that. So in other words, if folks in Manhattan, in New York City should be looking to Tokyo and thinking, yeah, okay, like we need to get on track to looking like Tokyo. Because once you go to one city in the world that's really clean, you look at all the other cities like, what are you guys doing? You're flubbing this. And then you meet people in that city that have a ton of pride, like, I fucking love New York, fuck London. Be like, London's cleaner than you pathetic. Look at your city's disgusting. What is this? And they're like, hey, fuck you, which is sweet. While New Yorkers are great. But no, nobody wants to have a dirty place. Let's clean up the world. It's fucking awesome. It's going to cost some money. That sucks. But if we're boosting freedom like crazy and boosting wealth creation, we can afford it. Even any fixed percentage of our budget, we can afford more and more and more cleanliness. And my political philosophy intersects with personal stuff. As a human being, you should at least tolerate other people's freedoms. As a human being, you should probably look up to wealthier people to figure out, like, how the fuck do they get there? Is there a set of dependable principles I can do? Like, wealth is a good thing. And as a human being, you probably want to be cleanly. No, obviously, it doesn't matter. If you ever met me in real life, I can't tell you it smell good because I'm a fucking hypocrite. But at least as far as here's real talk. I was walking down the street in Philadelphia once when I was living there, and I watched some folks drive in a car and they were eating McDonald's, and one of them just took the McDonald's wrapper and just threw it out of the car at speed, just on a normal city street in the city. So it wasn't on the freeway. This was just in a normal, like, urban street where people were living, and the wrapper just fell on the ground. Bro, if I had Superman or Amazo powers, I would stop the car and be like, come here, shut the fuck up, get out of the car. What the fuck is that? What is that? What are you doing? What if all of us did that? Do you want to live in a world like this? No. Am I saying we need to get the littering police going and beat people with batons for littering? No, that's insane. But on the margins, all of us could do a little bit better to have a cleaner world, because a cleaner world is fucking dope, man. It's nice. It's nice. That's what I got to say for cleanliness, straight up. And that means I am absolutely an environmentalist. I'm going to clean up the environment and not futz with it. I think it's great. Species preservation, the whole 9 yards. All right. So let's take a look. Let's back up a little bit and say, okay, how does this work in the real world? What are the countries in the world that are pretty bad at these things, that are scoring pretty low on freedom, pretty low on wealth, and pretty low on cleanliness? Most repressed nations score really bad on at least some of these, sometimes most. China, Iran, Russia, Turkmenistan, Cuba, North Korea. At least on wealth and freedom, these places generally suck. Sometimes on cleanliness, they're okay just because they have very, very low freedom and they use a lot of their wealth to clean up and do a whole lot of nothing else. Like, yeah. And also, here's the other thing. The capitals and the places they allow the media to be in these countries are often really nice, but the rest of the country sucks total dog dick. Turkmenistan, Ashgabat, where my dad is from and I've been before, ironically, Ashgabat looks great. It's capital of Turkmenistan. They cleaned the fuck up. You're actually not allowed to own a car in Ashgabat that's not white in color. Did you guys know that? Yeah. Turkmenbashi is fucking this one fucking color that he prefers and you can't get any other car. And it's clean and everything. But you go to some other villages and some other places in Turkmenistan and it's like, oh shit, the Stone Age. Rock on, fellas. So nations where people are running from as desperately as possible generally have low of all of these. And unfortunately, most developing nations don't have these qualities yet as high. A lot of it's because they're still developing, but it's mostly because they just haven't leaned into maximizing freedom, wealth, and cleanliness. You take almost every nation that you can of almost any stock of people, and you maximize their freedom, their wealth, and their cleanliness. And in a few generations, they're just a fucking rock star place. There are a bunch of examples of countries that just recently developed and did this whole transformation by really increasing their freedom, their wealth, and their cleanliness. Taiwan, South Korea, Botswana, which is in sub-Saharan Africa. It's statistically one of the most hit countries by the AIDS epidemic, but functionally, like a few diamond mining corporations kind of run the country, and it's grand for everyone. Super high social freedom. You'll have like independent black women owning businesses and driving their own cars in Africa. I know that's fucked up because I have to say, oh, it's in Africa. It's statistically unlikely, but on Botswana, it's just normal because they really rock starred the shit out of their fundamentals. They got lots of freedom, they got lots of wealth, and they're doing a real good job keeping it all nice and clean. Singapore went through this transformation. We're seeing Thailand go through a transformation now. It's really awesome. By the way, Vietnam, the communists won the Vietnam War and they turned the country into dog shit for 30 fucking years, but they're waking up now. And so Vietnam's index of economic freedom is rising all the time. They are accumulating tons of wealth. They're promoting tons of freedom. They're welcoming in immigration. They're welcoming in tourists. And it's still not the greatest place in the world, but like you're going to want to look at Vietnam for a while in the next 5 to 10 years because it's going up. Because I think they're finally done with the whole socialism shit. They're like, that was nice and all, but look, they keep looking at Thailand and they're like, they came from nothing and now they're a great place. Why don't we get a little bit of that going? So really, really big deal. Now, which countries are pretty good at these things? Which countries seem to at least score decent marks on enhancing freedom and wealth and cleanliness? Most of the free nations of Northern or Western Europe, the German peoples, the, French and Spanish, they do okay, a little less good. The Nordic countries, Iceland, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, they do great job at all of these things. Most of the nations of free Asia, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, etc., and most of the nations of the former British Empire, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, Ireland is really great. Irish people, I didn't mean to say that you were under the thumb of the British Empire. Please don't kill me. Oh, this is fucking Ireland. But you guys are great, and index of economic and social freedom is insanely high in Ireland, and it's a really clean place, great place to be. So these score really well. And the really trippy thing is when you go to these places, if I'm from a few of these places, I'm from the Soviet Union, it looks different. It's really different on the ground. And the best way to decode if a society is going to be a pretty nice place or if it's a pretty not so nice place is how are they addressing their policies on freedom, on wealth, and on cleanliness. If they're jacking them up, it's going to be fucking dope. If they're jacking them down, you probably don't want to go there at all because you just might get kidnapped or some shit like that, or the government will take you into jail, or you have to bribe corrupt cops, or the streets smell like sewers because the streets are sewers. Really nasty. So a thought experiment to have is just pick a place in your mind where you think, okay, I'm going to pick two places, one that I've heard is pretty bad and maybe I've been there and know it's bad, and one that it's good, and then compare it just heuristically on freedom, on wealth, and on cleanliness. And you realize like, oh yeah, it really is three of those things. And there are differences between countries and other metrics, but they're just not that important. So for me, one of the big reasons why I'm of this political philosophy of, relatively speaking, with nuance and context, trying to maximize freedom, wealth, and cleanliness is because if you've done a real good job at all of those, like does it really matter what you do on any of the other grounds? Like, oh, well, I simply hate Singapore because their art scene is ghastly. No creativeness, those people. Who gives a shit? If you're Singaporean, you just buy art from somewhere the fuck else. Singaporean artists, I love you. I'm sure you're great. I'm the worst art connoisseur of all time. Though I am a gifted artist. Scott, remember when I accidentally redid a Rodin painting exactly to spec?
Yes, I do. Remember when we played that game where like you had to draw something and people had to guess it and how good
Yes.
you were at it?
I was so good. My art starts with not being able to draw a straight line, and it gets worse from there. That's how I'd best describe it. And if you take me to an art museum, I'm like, that's a picture. And like, what else about it? I'm like, it has lines and shapes. Like, dude, are you like blind or some shit? No, but artistically, yes. So in any case, if we just get these three factors, we're doing real damn well. And the debate about what else we do is really super minor. So a couple of odds and ends here. What political party do I support? In this case, I live in the United States. So we got Republicans, we got Democrats, we have a few other folks every now and again. The political right, typically represented by the Republican Party, they're not entirely, gets some of it right. They're pretty good on wealth creation empowerment via regulation and taxation limits or reductions. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are supposed to be, please God, doing a good job of that. Let's go. They empower negative freedom. They protect negative freedom by empowering effective law enforcement. That's why I'm pro-military and pro-police, because the military keeps our countries and our country and our allies free from coercion. It's like if the military just left tomorrow, you would be speaking Farsi or Chinese, depending on if Iran or if China got to us first and enslaved the living shit out of everyone. That is what's going to happen. They're pretty open about this sort of thing. And so the police is designed to keep people from hurting each other and violating each other's freedoms. So I really like that conservatives are for wealth creation, and I really like that they're generally pro-military and pro-police, which I think are objectively good things. Of course, within reason. You don't want cops arresting you for nonsense or the military randomly attacking other countries for no big deal. The political left gets some of it right. LGBTQ, IA2+, I'm down with all that shit, girl. Come get that. Girl, boy, you feel me? What's up? Let's shake hands. I love it. Express yourself however you want. I think it's all beautiful. Abortion. Abortion is one of those things that has tons of nuance. Are we restricting the freedom of extant living human beings by terminating them? Holy shit, that's not freedom. Or are we empowering women with their own right to choose what happens to their bodies reproductively? Very much nuance. But if you take the view of, okay, it's not a human until like whatever, XYZ weeks after conception, you have to agree that abortion before that is a huge exercise of freedom. Do we think it's good? Do we think it's bad? We typically don't fuck with other people's private parts. So like if you want more children on this earth, you got Mr. Willie. You get a consenting adult, get married, have a good financial setup, and get to popping because this is going to come from you. Go out there and tell other people to have kids. So I'm pro-choice because of the fact that I think more choice is better, and I don't think we're running out of people. And before you get clever in the comments, the robotics revolution is going to make it irrelevant. The population decline is not a big deal. Ha, I got you, zap, motherfucker. Respond to that. In any case, the political left is very pro-immigration, which I think is really great. Immigration, without any debate whatsoever on the actual economic data, massively boosts wealth for everyone in the society and enhances freedom for immigrants. The problem is both parties can do a lot better to promote these values and interfere with them less. So like conservatives, for some reason, every now and again, just try to get in the way of other people's civil rights for some goddamn reason. And it's kind of weird. And it's really stupid and short-sighted. And the political left gets their gun out and goes, hold on, I can shoot myself in the foot too. They bring in tons of immigrants. And they're like, by the way, the cops are now powerless. Don't enforce the law. So like Venezuelan gangs are killing people in New York City. Like, fellas, come on. We need to bring tons of immigrants in, and we need to make sure they understand the law of the land is as such. And if they commit a crime before they're naturalized, back you go. It's not that complicated, but people make it complicated because they got a lot of feelings about it, or they don't have this hierarchy of what's important: freedom, wealth, and cleanliness. So both parties can do better, which is why I'm not particularly aligned with any political party. For this last election, I think like Trump, with his support by Elon and stuff, his views on AI regulation, which is to say empower AI so we can beat China in the AI war, so to speak, and his general idea of deregulating large parts of the government, and the fact that he's not so passionate about restricting rights. Like, Trump's not anti-gay, he's not avowedly racist or anything like that. It's really difficult to paint him as like a classical, like, conservative that wants to limit people's freedoms. He just doesn't do that. So for me, that's pretty dope. Kamala Harris was fine and dandy. She seemed like a nice lady, but anytime she was asked about policy, she was like, oh yeah, like, let's control food prices to bring them down. Like, fellas, we tried price controls. Price controls are the laughing stock of Econ 101. You go to Econ 101 in most universities, even leftist biased universities, would be like, we need price controls to bring down food. And the professor's going to be like, we'll look at the history of price controls. It just doesn't work all that well. Regulation typically sucks. Intelligent regulation is good and promotes lots of good things. But Kamala seemed to be like, yeah, I'm for that regulation and for some other stupid shit. It just make a lot of sense. So for me, and because we have such a high degree of social freedom, I thought her advocacy for it was just like not very heartfelt. Not that I'm a Donald Trump supporter or a fan. Donald Trump's kind of an insane person. I didn't even know if he'd take offense to that. I guess he like zigged a little bit more than he zagged, and he's sort of like, hopefully the next 4 years will be okay. We'll see how it goes. But I'm not like super pro one candidate or the other. On the margins, I can make some choices. But when I make choices on the margins, almost always comes down to how does this candidate support freedom, wealth, and cleanliness? If it's better than the other, they're probably going to get the nod in my case. So what I'll say is this. You sitting at home, if you process this stuff and it makes remotely any sense to you, you give a shit, or you're actually like, oh, there's a lot of good points here, you can adjust your political thinking on the margins to integrate these factors. I am not here to tell you that I have discovered a new heuristic for how to think about the world and derive meaning. I do have that. That's episode 1. If you're not into that shit and it's weird, no problem. You are every race, every gender, every religion. You're conservative. You're a leftist. No big deal. When you think about voting or advocating for a candidate or a political party, think through if that candidate is going to promote or impinge or have no effect on freedom, wealth, and cleanliness. And if they do better than the other opponent on these metrics, whatever else you think about them, their stock should rise. Because like, it's totally cool to vote left of center. There's lots of good ideas there. It's totally cool to vote right of center. Lots of good ideas there. But as long as whichever candidates you end up voting for, let's say we have 2 leftist candidates. I'll give you a great example. You got Hillary Clinton. This is the fucking Street Fighter video game. Hillary Clinton, dun, 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 Epstein computer files, like she throws them and they circle back. I don't know. And then you got Bernie Sanders on the other side. Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton is a lizard-eyed non-human, sure, but she's a pragmatist. And if her economic advisors go like, you sign this bill into law and the economy is going down the fucking drain, don't do it. She's going to be like, well, I want a legacy and I want to spend money on all my favorite programs and I want a strong military so people know to fucking fear Hillary. She's probably going to be like, nah, I'm good. Can we do some kind of version of this economic policy that lets the crazy leftists in the party sleep well at night, but also doesn't fuck the economy? Almost guaranteed she would do that. But you got Bernie Sanders, and no offense, he had a great heart, all that stuff. But Bernie's plan for the economy was like how an undergraduate economics socialist lover would fall down the stairs with his textbook. It's a fucking walking disaster. And so if you want to be like, oh, I'm pro Bernie, like Bernie just had a lot of really bad takes. Like he thought rich people were bad. That's the opposite of the truth. He wanted to regulate the living fuck out of our entire economy. Him and Elizabeth Warren, it's just bad. So yeah, like on that margin, yes, I'm kind of glad Hillary got promoted and she lost to Trump. But if she won, it would have been way fucking better than Bernie Sanders. That's the kind of shit I'm talking about. I didn't mean to talk shit about Bernie now for a while, but like, folks, we need people who understand modern economics, at least some small extent, right? That's a thing. And so if you just vote in the same way you usually do, with the same vibes you should go for, whatever you think about abortion or whatever issue is important to you, stick to that. It makes sense for you. But if you just on the issues you don't care about, especially, take a look at how your candidate treats freedom, treats wealth, and treats cleanliness, then voting more for those things and voting against people who don't love them or are really trying to impinge on them is probably a good thing, because more freedom, more wealth, and more cleanliness are almost always better, period. Not better as a trade-off, not better relatively, not better to you versus me. They're just better for today and especially for the future. That's a big deal. The last thing I have to tell you guys is we now have, Scott, drumroll, unofficial sponsor. That's right, as the greedy capitalist that I am, and for sure Scott is, Scott actually has a new device which pushes poor children away from his car as he's trying to get into it. The beggars, this is so annoying.
Repellent magnets.
Yes.
Fly away.
Yes. Where are they going? Who knows? Not by my Rolls Royce. That's what direct Scott quote. So we actually had a chance to partner up with the Waking Up app from Mr. Sam Harris. This is not a bullshit plug. This is, I'm telling you right now, I regularly use the app in my meditation. I have a long journey of meditation. I can make a video about that at some point. It's going to snooze you guys to death. But real talk, meditation is a way for you to have all the stuff that's happening in your mind happen a little bit up front. You recess back and watch. Real tough to do at first. It barely even makes sense. And as you watch your mind do its things, the natural tendency of the mind is to calm itself. A natural tendency of the mind is for a very serene type of deep pleasure to emerge. And seeking better and better mindfulness, it's like a skill, it's like a muscle, can allow you to do everything you do in your life better, to retrieve more joy from every experience, and to have less of what you do in the world being like, fuck, I wish I wouldn't have said that to Lindsay. Now she's pissed. To be mindful of that everything you say has a consequence, and to very carefully choose what you say so that you just have a better time. It's just a way to have a better time. And if you're dealing with any kind of psychological problems, mindfulness is an insanely powerful tool that they'll teach you in CBT anyway. Now, I used to think CBT meant cock and ball torture as a porn category, but it turns out it means cognitive behavioral therapy. Who knew? Every time I meet a therapist, I'm like, do you do CBT? They're like, yeah. I'm like, that's my dog. They're like, what? In any case, just kidding. Psychoanalysis. In any case. So the worst ad read ever for Waking Up. Sam Harris, I'm really sorry. You get with this app, first of all, an infinite number of meditation sessions you can do forever, but also Sam Harris himself, and boy, is his voice soothing. My God. Narrates and walks you through a beginner meditation course. If you've never meditated before and you're like, this is strange and weird and Eastern, Sam will talk you through it. He talked me through it. I thought it was phenomenal. Now, I came to the course already having a pretty deep understanding of meditation, a lot of experience. I did the beginner course anyway, and it was phenomenal. And I think it's one of these things, you don't want to recommend something to everyone, like that's kind of weird, but if you're interested in taking a deep dive, really you're architecting a lot of your mental stuff and getting to a level of calm that you didn't really think was possible in your life, the Waking Up app is the way to go. There's a link in the description, wakingUp/Dr. Mike. If you get your shit through that, I guess you get a big discount, which is great for you. And I think we get paid somehow. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but basically Sam Harris's people were like, Sam Harris is like, kind of thinks you're pretty cool. And the fact that Sam knew who I was like, give him our money right now. I'll sell whatever the fuck he wants. JK, I really use the shit. It's really awesome. Check out the app. And in the future, I'm just going to be mentioning it with much smaller ad reads because it's our first time. We're going to welcome them to the channel. I'm on this whole fucking shtick of explaining it. But next time I'll try to get the app promo reads to be a little bit more organic and sly like I do on the other channel. Anyway, guys, I need to burn a brand new helicopter just to show off how much money I have. Helicopter's not going to burn itself. I'll see you next time.